A heavy defeat at Castleford followed by a convincing win over Hunslet. That's the story of the season so far, and we're here to find out more in the second edition of Inside the Knights. Tonight we're down at Oakland School where the lads are preparing for Sunday's crucial Northern Rail Cup tie away at Featherstone Rovers. Because of the snowy weather, we're in the school hall. And to get his thoughts after one loss and one win is the assistant coach of the Knights, Paul Broadbent. Paul Broadbent returns to the Knights as assistant coach, having been the player coach of the club during the inaugural season in 2003. A firm favourite, his return in a coaching capacity is seen as a major boost for the club. I started by asking Paul what brought him back to the York City Knights.
Well, when I left after the first year, it was down to family commitments really, and just not being able to spend enough time with kids and stuff. So, but then after I've been away from it for a while, I felt like I wanted to get back involved. And when I left York, everybody were really good. It's a great atmosphere around club. All the people are good, and there's a lot of genuine people that have got the club at heart involved. So I thought if I were going to go anywhere, then I'd like to get back involved at York.
What do you do in your year off? Did you keep in contact with the club?
Yeah, I came up and watched a few games and came and helped out at a few odd sessions here and there. You know, when they asked me to come up, and I enjoyed it. You know, it was nice to have a bit of a break and be able to do stuff with kids. But on the other hand, it were nice to be back involved at times. And it weren't until later on in the year when I'd been out again for a while, I came and did a couple of sessions, and that's when I got bugged back as such.
So, what's your precise role now at the club?
I'm just basically helping Mick out, you know, doing whatever I can do to assist, and trying to help. What we've got now is we've got a nucleus of coaches that are able to spend a bit more one-on-one time with certain players and work more specific on certain areas of the game, which makes it easier. Because when you're a coach, I found in the first year, when you're a coach and you've got limited sort of coaching resources, then it means that you get absorbed by the genuine sort of running of the team and making sure that everything's in order on team scale, and you tend to to a certain degree neglect the individual skills, and that's something that's a real big part of developing a player and a team.
So, obviously you head coach in 2003, it's now 2005. How do you think the club's changed in that time?
I think it's moved on dramatically. You know, you look at Mick in his own rights, he's worked alongside some real quality coaches, and he's been in a very professional setup down at Leeds, and he's fetched that professional attitude over here. So it's I think that's good for the club, and they're going forward in great strides. You can see that the level of player that they've got on board now it's moving on every year, and they're taking strides forward. And while ever they're taking strides forward, the club's going to be moving forward, and I think that the people around York can see that, and they can see that the atmosphere is good, and that's why they're turning out in force.
What's your assessment of the way the season's gone so far? I've only played two proper competitive games.
It's hard at this stage. There's still a lot of rugby to run. You know, we've got a lot to play yet. But I think that the guys have been taking on board what Mick's been sort of trying to sell to them, and they got a lot of results out of it early on. And I think that the Castleford were a bit of a setback, and you're always going to have a step back. Your progression's never always in one direction. You've got to take a step back sometimes to be able to regather yourself and go forward again. And I think that we've just got to keep trying to reinforce what Mick's been putting forward. You know, the sort of camaraderie and things like that, wanting to push up and support each other and never letting one man go up on his own and things like that, all that sort of stuff. It's simple stuff, but when you do it and you do it effectively, it makes the game look so simple. But that's how it is, you know. It's not a complicated game, but people try to make it overcomplicated at times.
So Hunslet was a much better performance. How can we build on that performance?
I think that we just got to start carrying on in the same vein. We went out there, we had a single-minded determination that we wanted to win the floor, we wanted to do the right things. As ball control, a little bit better. Defensively, we held up a lot better. So we've got to make sure that we go into the next game, which is going to be another big test for us. They're a National League One side, so we've got to go into the next game trying to do exactly the same things, and then believe that we can do it. And it's not, one game's not a season. It's a long haul, and we've got to be in there. And once you start thinking that it's just going to happen for you, that's when you start slipping. You've got to make sure that you're putting it in and you're up for it every week, and then we'll get the results.
Thinking about the morale, so Steve Ferres has gone now. Has that had any effect?
Steve was a great guy. He'd put a lot into the club and he'd developed it quite a long way, and he worked tirelessly for the cause. But I don't think that there's been any sort of fall in morale as such. I think it's just the guys are working on a day-to-day basis with the players and everything else. And I think that when you're in your sort of playing phase, it's a case of business as usual. You've got to get down there and you've got to do it. And nothing's changed on the coaching side of things. Nothing's changed on the field, the training field side of things. So for the players, there hasn't been a great deal of change.
Finally, you've had a taste of what it's like to be a head coach. Would you take a job if it was offered to you again in that position?
I don't know. It's a very time-consuming position. When the time's right, I would like to be involved, maybe in a more of a head coach's capacity, but that's not something that I'm looking at in the near future. I'm happy to be involved, and I think I can learn a lot from Mick and Darryl and people like that who've been involved at Leeds and seen a very professional attitude, and they've seen a lot of quality coaches and worked under a lot of quality coaches, and I believe that I can learn from that.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us, Paul.
No problem.
Thanks to Paul, and it's great to see him back at the York City Knights. Next tonight, to get an insight into how the players are feeling so far this season, I've come to speak to one of the new signings for 2005, Lee Paterson. 23-year-old Lee Paterson joined the club in the close season from relegated Keighley Cougars. His display at loose forward in the Leeds friendly in January caught the eye of many onlookers. And this season with the Knights will be a good test of his ability. So Lee, how are you settling in to life at the York City Knights?
Yeah, it's good, mate. It's quite nice not to have to travel. And I knew a few of the York lads before I signed, so come over here and it's been quite nice, yeah, settled in pretty quick.
And what's the difference between Keighley and York?
Well, I don't live in Keighley, I live in York, so it's quite nice to sort of be around the hometown and whatever. I didn't really know too much about Keighley, to be honest. I was only there to train and play. Club-wise, Keighley was a good club, the fans were good, similar to York. But I've just enjoyed my time a lot at York. I'm settling in pretty good. We'll see how we go.
So how do you assess the team's performances so far? I
thought we went well in the friendlies. But again, they were only friendlies, so they don't count for anything. The real stuff started 2 weeks ago. Castleford was pretty disappointing. We were all pretty disappointed about that. I think we got them on a good day, 6,000 people down at their home ground. First game of the proper points kind of season, and they were well up for it. We thought we were, and it just didn't happen. Bad day at the office, sort of get it out of the system and get on with it. Hunslet last week. I think, although, it was a bit scrappy, I think we did dominate the game. And we were pretty pleased with it, but there's things to work on still, like I'm sure there will be all season. So.
Thinking about the Castleford game, it was quite a shock to get such a heavy defeat.
Yeah.
Do you think the conditions had played a factor, or do you think it was just one of those days?
I don't think they helped, but I think it was one of those days. The first half we struggled, but we were still in the game. Half-time Mick came in and just more or less said that we aren't doing too well, but we're still in the game. Second half we went out and it just didn't come off for us. You live and learn, don't you? Sort of put that out of the way and learn from the mistakes. Don't dwindle on it too much and just get on with it. Without sounding too harsh, it might have done us a bit of good. A bit of kick up the backside, knuckle down again. Because we had gone well up until then. Even though we got beat at Hull, we'd gone pretty well in the second half, and I think it was it was a good thing in some minds, a bit of a kick up the bum and start again.
So a comprehensive victory over Hunslet and a much better performance. Can we progress in this competition?
In the trains, yeah, why not? I think Castleford will be a different story when they come to our place. We've got Featherstone twice in the next couple of weeks, Hunslet again. There's no reason why we can't. And especially, first division clubs, we beat Doncaster. They had a very good side out against us that day. Why not? We don't got there to lose, so you want to qualify.
So tonight you've been preparing for Sunday's game. It's going to be pretty tough.
It is, yeah. It's going to be fun. It's always, you never get an easy game at Featherstone, but we'll be all right. We're preparing well for it, so we'll look forward to Sunday and see how it goes.
So how's morale in the camp? Obviously you were down here at Oakland School and you seem to be having quite a good laugh and obviously a lot of serious work done. You know, what do you think about the morale here?
Yeah, it's good. As every week goes by, the boys get to know each other a bit more and know a little bit more about each other, and things go off in training that you don't forget about it for a good couple of weeks if something happens. And yeah, morale's pretty good. We're getting there. Everyone's settling in. You know, we've got Neil. Who's just signed. Obviously he was here a couple of years ago, so he's pretty settled already. We've got Simon coming back, as you know. I knew Simon, even though I wasn't at York, I knew Simon, so that'll be pretty easy. I think morale's pretty good. You know, there's a few little jokes going around the club, and we're getting like fine systems in places for forgetting water bottles and things like that, and just little things like that make a big difference. You know, you're always watching your back, and it's good. It's good. Yeah, morale's good.
So why do you think it is that the club can attract such quality players?
To be honest, I just think that it's been a long time coming in York as a good rugby club, and the way Steve, although he's gone now, the way Steve spoke to me about signing, the club's going places, and he was a shrewd businessman, let's say, with Steve, and even though you don't get what you want out of him all the time, you know that with somebody like that around and the people that he's put in, or the systems that are in place in the back, the club's going to go forward, and you kind of know it is. I mean, I don't know whether people out there would appreciate that unless you've been sort of in the club and in the situation, but you know where it's going, and the club's in existence to go forward. It's not in there just to please people, you know. So hopefully, it's been run like a business now, and we'll go in places. Hopefully.
So you're obviously happy here. Yeah. What are the goals for Lee Paterson in his career?
In my career, obviously, I'd like to play Super League. Whether that's possible or not, I don't know, but I don't suppose I'll stop trying until I don't play anymore. As we go for this season, it's obviously to improve myself on a personal level and get in mix 13, 17, week in, week out. Definitely career-wise, I want to play as long as I can and play at the highest level. Maybe with York I'll get there.
So Lee, you're from York, you know what rugby league has become in York since the old days where the previous club folded. What do you think of the support that you receive from the terraces? It's
fantastic, it really is. I mean, like I say, when I was at Keighley, the support you got was pretty good, but at York it just seems to be there's a few more there, and they're a bit more. I mean, at Keighley fans used to come support really well and then disappear. At Keighley they kind of hang around York, they hang around a little bit, and there's a lot more sort of attention. Whether that's because I live in York or not, I don't know. But yeah, the support's fantastic, and at Castleford obviously it's going to be a big support, but it depends. We'll see how it goes through the season. London and Barrow and places like that, we'll see what support follows us. I'm sure it'll be good.
Finally, I always have to ask this question: can we do it this season? Get promotion from the Division 2?
Awful question to ask. I'd like to think so. It's going to be a very tough year, but we've got everyone in place, and players and coaching staff, and the club's going places, and we've got to be confident enough to give it a go, but not too confident to shoot ourselves in the foot. But the fans can be sure that we'll be giving 120%. As we do every Sunday. It'll carry on through the season, or we'll be dropped.
Well, let's hope you're not. Yeah. Thanks for speaking to us, Lee.
No worries, thanks very much.
The words of Lee Paterson, who should prove to be a fine addition to the Knights squad for this season. Join me after the break for part 2 of Inside the Knights. We start Statzone with a look at the results from the first 4 match days of the group stage of the Northern Rail Cup. The Knights got off to a disastrous start in match day 1 with a 52-2 defeat at the hands of red-hot favourites Castleford Tigers. Despite keeping the hosts down to a 12-2 lead at the break, the second half was one-way traffic with the Knights shipping 40 points. In the other game of the round, Featherstone got off to a good start with a 28-12 win at South Leeds Stadium against Hunslet Hawks, with a man-of-the-match performance from Aussie standoff Josh Wheaton. In round 2, the Knights got their campaign back on track with a convincing win over Hunslet at Huntington Stadium. 2 tries from returning favourite Neil Law, 2 from John Smith and the other from Dan Potter. In the other game in this round, Castleford won their derby with Featherstone by 22 points to 10 in a close game at Post Office Road. This famous derby created a new record attendance for the Northern Rail Cup, as a crowd of 6,353 packed into the ground. Match day 3 saw an entertaining encounter at the Lionheart Stadium, as the York City Knights put in a good performance, but went down to a late 35-metre drop goal from Josh Wheaton, sealing a lucky victory for the home side. Considering the visitors were 12-0 down in only 12 first-half minutes, it was a positive display where the Knights showed great character. Final score, Rovers 21, Knights 20. In the other game, Castleford massacred the Hawks 70-0. It looks like it could be a long, hard season for Hunslet. As you've just seen from the highlights in part 2 of this show, the Knights came back from 20 points to 6 down to get a draw against Fev in the return game at Huntington. Dropped ball and missed chances will leave the Knights ruining what might have been, as they took 1 foot through the Northern Rail exit door, and Rovers can count themselves very fortunate to come away from York with anything at all. In the other game of the round, Castleford mopped up an easy double over Hunslet with a 34-6 victory in the return game. Looking at the standings, Castleford have a firm grip on the top place, and it will take some doing to prevent them winning this group. Failure to beat Featherstone leaves the Knights with it all to do, putting the men from Post Office Road in control of second place and still in with a shout in the race for top spot. And with Castleford still to play, it looks like the Knights won't be suffering from a fixture pile-up thanks to this competition this season. The next 2 fixtures for the Knights are both at home, and next up at Huntington Stadium is the Powergen Challenge Cup third round tie with Elland. The tie was originally drawn away, but has been switched to York on request, the gate receipts being split down the middle. It should be a comfortable victory for the Knights, but in the Challenge Cup you never quite know, and that's the magic of the competition. After Elland, it's the big game against Castleford. The match is all tickets, so a full house is expected, and the Tigers, as good a side as they are, won't get as easy a game this time. Then it's a trip to South Leeds Stadium to face Hunslet, who will be looking to shake off their tag as the group's whipping boys. However, I doubt they will succeed against the far superior Knights. A look at the table of leading try scorers for the season after 4 competitive games played sees Neil Law leading the way early on, with Dan Potter, John Smith and Chris Levy weighing in with 2 apiece. The race to be top dog in this category will be healthy this season, with plenty of contenders throughout the squad, and Yusuf Sozi, Darren Callahan and Peter Fox have also crossed the whitewash 1 time apiece. Hello and welcome to a very cold, wet and windy jungle where the fans have just filed out, the players have just left the field, and sadly it's been a bit of a disappointment. It's also a sad day because it's the last day that Steve Ferres is chief executive at a game for this club. So we've come to speak to him for one last time. Steve Ferres' role in helping the sport of rugby league to rise again in the city of York is well documented. His hard work over the past 3 years as chief executive has been phenomenal, and has been one of the major reasons for the club's success both on and off the field. So Steve, can we start off by getting your thoughts on today's game?
Well, obviously Phil, not impressed. It's probably the worst performance that the Knights have put in since we've been in existence. Disappointed for the boys, disappointed for the crowd really, but we'll be back again next week and I'm sure they'll do well.
What do you think the difference was between the 2 sides?
Well, obviously there's the pace and they've got the facility to train full time, which gives them an edge. Yeah, they get the ability to win play the ball and get the goal forward. So I thought Castleford played very, very well today, and we were exceptionally poor, they were exceptionally good.
So you must be disappointed personally, obviously, with your last game in charge today, and it didn't really go the way that perhaps it should be.
No, but I mean, at the end of the day, it don't matter about this week, it doesn't matter about last week. It's all about, you know, what we've done and what we're going to do, and the club's got a good footing now to move forward, and today's game hopefully will just be a blip.
So you're stepping down. Can you tell us the reasons why you decided to do that?
Well, I've put a lot of effort in for over the last 3 years, 24 hours, 7 days a week, thinking about the nights and trying to get it to a situation where it could, you know, like they say, raising the baby and then the baby could walk. Well, the baby can walk now. There's a lot of good people there, a lot of competent people that can take the club forward, and I believe the timing was right for me to step down.
Because I've heard many people say that they can't imagine the Yorkshire United Knights without Steve Ferres, and they can't imagine how the club's going to continue, but you're happy with the foundations laid?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm flattered that people can say that, but there again, it'd be a poor organisation if it stood and fell on one man. Like I said, again, there are a lot of good people at York City Knights, a lot of competent people, a lot of people that will work hard and to continue the work that's been put into place. So I'm pleased that I've been able to put some building blocks in place for the Knights, and that's what I intended to do when I first came to the club, to get them back into, you know, into the game as such, to get a crowd, to get a competitive side. And although we haven't been competitive today, you know, as much as it hurts me, I think it's fair to say that in every game before that we have been.
I read an article in the local paper which said there's been applications for your job already, so that must symbolise the strength of the club.
There's been applications for my job. Well, I haven't seen it advertised yet, but I should imagine there would be. It's a thriving club to come to, and a lot of people, I'm sure, would be interested in the position.
I don't think it's been advertised, I think. Also, looking back over your 3 years, it's been a hell of a rise from nothing to where we are today, despite today's result. What are your kind of fondest memories of your time as chief executive of the Knights?
Well, I mean, there's plenty, there's been many, but the first game when we beat Sheffield was special because it was the first win. But I've had many memories, and everlasting memories of individuals, of people. A lot who I can't mention because of supporters, and I don't know everybody's name, but I know a lot of them. They've been fantastic, each and every one of them, and it's been a pleasure to be associated with them, as it has been with the board of directors, in particular Roger Dixon and his family. And I can't speak highly enough of everybody that's been connected with the club, really.
So what's it been like for you since you announced that you're stepping down? Have you had lots of goodwill messages?
Oh yeah, I've had plenty of messages, and you know, again, I'd like to thank everybody for the messages, both on the internet board, and phone calls, and press. But like I said, at the end of the day, we've got to move forward and move onwards. And you know, I've enjoyed my time at York, and I'm pleased with what I've put in place. I'll always try and help the club in any way, shape, or form that I can. But you know, the club's going to move forward now.
So we talk about the Knights as being a family. What message would you have finally to your colleagues, to the fans, to the players of the club?
Just keep on doing what you're doing and believe in yourselves. I mean, at the end of the day, the fans have got to believe in the players. I know they'll turn up in droves next week. They've had an upset today. Everybody's disappointed. I can tell you, nobody's been more disappointed than Mick Cook, Dadler Powell and the players. But they'll pick themselves up, they'll write themselves down, and they'll come back with a big performance next week, I'm sure. So just stick in there, you know, everything's there. And I believe that York will go from strength to strength.
Well, thanks very much for speaking to us, Steve, and thanks for putting the smiles back on our faces, and have a great retirement.
Cheers, take care.
Departing Chief Executive Steve Ferres, and what a massive contribution he's made to the rebirth of the great game of rugby league in the city of York. Sadly, that's all for this edition of Inside the Knights. Join me next time for the rugby league rollercoaster ride, where there's always more ups than downs. Bye-bye.